I am Jeffrey Robinson, a summer intern with the National Sports Media Association, and this is BJ Rains, who I'm interviewing today. He won his fifth NSMA Idaho Sportswriter of the Year award in 2024. He spent 8 years as the Boise State beat writer for the Idaho Press Tribune before taking over the very popular Bronco News Nation in December 2021, which covers Boise State athletics. So BJ, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to get started, what got you involved in the industry of sports writing and sports media?
Actually, my dad, and it's cool because my dad actually won his first award this year as well, and so it's pretty cool for me. Full circle here that he was the Missouri Sports Writer of the Year this year, and it's his first award. So I'm super pumped and excited to get to have this moment with him and go out there, for the awards ceremony. But yeah, he was an author. He's written a lot of books. He was a beat writer for papers and things back in the day, and worked for USA Today. And when I was growing up, he was covering the Cardinals back in the 80s, 90s, and I got to go to all these cool places and travel and get to go to the ballpark for a living. And he always said like other people get up and say they have to go to work today, and he says, "Oh, I get up and I get to go to the ballpark, for a game." And so it just that love for sports writing and just media and all that kind of stuff. Kind of got it from him and saw the kind of lifestyle that it could be, and also saw that you don't make much money, which sometimes stinks, but it's worked out okay. And so, yeah, I knew I wanted to get into sports somehow. And I knew like in high school, I wasn't going to be playing sports. I wasn't good enough for that. So looked at the other avenues, like, do I want to become an agent? Do I want to do something different like that? And just kind of gravitated towards the family business, I guess, and sports media, and wrote for the school paper in high school and wrote for the school paper in college, and just kind of took off from there.
Was there a specific sport growing up that you went with your dad and that really drew you into it?
Yeah, I would say baseball. I mean, college basketball. I'm a huge college basketball fan, and me and my dad both went to Kansas. So, my love of sports and watching games with my dad and stuff. Kansas basketball may have been, the first thing there, but certainly baseball. Growing up in St. Louis, being a Cardinals fan, and like I said, my dad covering the team, and myself getting to go to a lot of games because of that. And back in the day when they get free tickets or whatever. I mean, it was just being a St. Louis, and that's what you're a Cardinals fan. That's what you are. And so doing that, and then like I said, with my dad being involved in the media and knowing the players and that kind of stuff, it just I would say that's certainly the one that I gravitated towards the most.
Busch Stadium is definitely beautiful, but as a Reds fan, I don't know if there's a whole lot more I can say nice
Ah,
about the Cardinals, but
all good.
it's all right.
Even both my sons are like huge Ellie De La Cruz fans, so I get it. It's
Oh,
all good.
I'm sure everyone under the age of 13 is the biggest Ellie De La Cruz fan. But you mentioned you went to Kansas. Your dad went to Kansas as well. What kind of broke you out into the industry after college?
I had a couple internships. My first one was writing for the school paper was big. I did some other internships while I was at college. I got to write, for the Associated Press and things. But the big one was probably MLB.com. They have this like summer program where they hire they don't call it interns. I think they call it associate reporters. But basically, you spend the summer like helping the beat reporter for MLB.com like cover that team. So they put a kid in every city, and then even when sometimes the other beat writer wouldn't travel. So, like, if the Brewers came to St. Louis and that was the 3 days that the Brewers writer was going to take off, then I would basically become the Brewers writer for 3 days. And so I'd get to go interview the Brewers players and their coach and write all their stories for 3 days. And then maybe the Mets writer wouldn't come. So you got a chance to be like a full fledged, beat writer for the other team. And then when they did travel, you just kind of helped out the main, writer for the Cardinals or for whatever team you were covering. So you got like as a college student or fresh out of college, some real life experience, like going into major league clubhouses and talking to like superstars and having to get rid of that wide-eyed kind of oh, I can't be scared going in here into the Yankee clubhouse talking to Johnny Damon or Alex Rodriguez or whoever. Like it, as a college kid, it was pretty crazy and pretty intimidating at times, and you had to get over that pretty quick to realize, no, I'm in here and I got a press pass and I'm allowed to be in here and I got a job to do and I got to so it was I learned kind of in college. I kind of got thrown into the fire with that internship, so that was a great experience for me. And then at the time, Fox Sports Midwest and kind of the foxsports.com brand, they were hiring a lot of like writers to cover the teams and they were trying to really add to their websites. And so I wrote for foxsportsmidwest.com for a couple years, got to stay in St. Louis, got to do the Cardinals, the Blues, the Rams, and got to do a lot of different, local St. Louis teams while still living in St. Louis and being, just a couple years out of college. So that was a great kind of first job for me. But it was like a contract position. It wasn't necessarily full time. And so, in terms of benefits and insurance and that kind of stuff, there was just some things that led me to eventually look for, something a little different and looked at a couple jobs and Boise, Idaho, never had been to Idaho, never had been out west a ton. And just my wife was graduating nursing school and it was kind of the right time to try something new and had heard about the blue turf in Idaho and figured we'd give it a shot. And, so I know I'm with a different organization now, but 12, 13 years later, we're still out here in Idaho and both my kids have been born here and loving every second of it.
Well, so um, it wasn't ideal to move to Idaho. Did you have any places when you were looking for jobs, or maybe Atlanta, maybe stay in Kansas City? What were you thinking?
Well, actually, I knew I wanted to cover baseball, and I wanted to cover. I wanted to be a baseball beat writer, and obviously, if you want to do it at the hometown paper or whatever, but they didn't have any openings, so saw some jobs out there, and there was one with the Oakland A's for a paper out covering the Oakland A's, and I ended up being one of the finalists for the job, and had a couple interviews, and I didn't get it, and they told me kind of the main reason was just because I didn't have like the newspaper experience. I've been writing for a website and didn't have to deal with deadlines as much, or some of the differences that comes with writing for like a newspaper that prints every day as opposed to like a website like foxsportsmidwest.com. So they said, hey, apply for a beat writer job. Doesn't matter if it's college or pro, doesn't matter how big or small the newspaper is. Just go get a job somewhere covering a team for a year or two. You'll get your experience, you'll get your clips, and then you'll be able to kind of do whatever you want and have a lot more options, moving forward. So went online and there were a couple openings. I believe it was covering Alabama for one of the papers somewhere down there in Alabama, and then there was covering Boise State for the Idaho Press Tribune, out in Idaho. And I think I applied for both and heard back pretty quickly from the Idaho Press Tribune, and right place, right time. I was actually covering spring training at the time in like 2013, and ended up having to drive from Florida at spring training back to St. Louis, packing up, and then a couple days later driving from St. Louis all the way out to Idaho, and the rest is kind of history.
Well, so what's been your favorite stop so far throughout your career?
I mean, certainly as a Cardinals fan, getting to like be credentialed when they won the World Series was pretty sweet. Be on the field like when they're celebrating winning a World Series, and being in the locker room when they're spraying champagne on you. I mean, when they beat the Brewers to go to the World Series, I've got Albert Pujols like dumping a bottle of champagne, on the back of my neck and my head. There's some pretty cool like stories and stuff like that. So I mean
Well,
that's certainly tough to beat, like being a St. Louis, home, growing up in St. Louis and being able to cover Blues playoff games and cover a World Series. Got to go to every playoff game during that World Series run in 2013. Got to go to the 1-0 game in Game 5 against Philadelphia. Chris Carpenter against Roy Halladay in that game, and then the Brewers series, and then like I said, the World Series, the Game 3 down in Texas when Albert Pujols hit 3 home runs in one game, and then just like I said, the David Freese, walk-off homer in Game 6, and then being there for Game 7. I mean, that's going to be tough to beat, but being out here in Idaho, I've gotten to do some pretty cool things as well. They've had basketball tournaments in the Cayman Islands, or go to Hawaii for a football game, or all San Diego, all the cool spots I've gotten to go to. This year Boise State football plays at Notre Dame, so I get to go to that stadium. I mean, there's just been a lot of you've gotten to travel the country and go to some it's pretty cool when you give a work trip to Vegas like once every couple of months, or a work trip to San Diego, and like I mentioned, Florida and all the different places, Orlando, and places I've got to go. This year the basketball team's in the Maui Invitational, so I get to go out there. I mean, it's a pretty cool job. And, my kids are getting a little older, so it makes it a little tough to want to leave for 3, 4, 5 days at a time all the time. But my wife does a great job with it, and we make it work right now. But, yeah, I mean, there's people that have great jobs, maybe better paying jobs, but maybe don't love their job as much if it's an 8 to 5 job, or you're stuck in an office all day. And I get to go say I'm going to work and going to watch football practice, or going to watch basketball practice and going to sit in a press box and watch a game. And so it's a pretty cool job. And for a sports fan, it's a dream really to be doing what I'm doing. And I would say every stop has had different advantages and different things I like about it to this point. I mean, I haven't had a ton of them, just covering all, in St. Louis and then coming out to Idaho, but they've all been everywhere I've been, every place I've worked, every coworker I've had to this point have all been awesome, and I loved every minute of it, and certainly happy with what I've been able to do to this point.
You're still a really young guy. You have a lot of experience, but you're still kind of in the prime of your career. Is there a goal down the road where you'd like to wind up? Or are you just enjoying what you're doing now and whatever happens, happens? Where are you at with that?
I'm planning a trip to San Diego for the Boise State football game for my 40th birthday in November. So you saying that I'm relatively young and in the prime of my career, I really appreciate you saying that. I'm not counting down the days till I hit the big 4-0 here in 4 or 5 months, whatever it is. So I appreciate you saying that. But you know what? I've been asked that before. I don't know. Like I said, I just want to make enough money to keep, be able to support my family and help out and have a good life. And did I think I'd be in Boise, Idaho for 12 years? No. I thought I'd be there a year or two and project, parlay that back into something in St. Louis and move back. And I really did think that'd probably be the plan. My wife's family's from Kansas. I'm from Missouri. We figured we're Midwestern folks and figured we'd get back to the Midwest, but things happen and both our kids were born here and we've met a lot of great people here and do I miss not being closer to my brother and my parents and my family? Yeah, I wish that in a perfect world that we'd get back there, but happy out here and we made a lot of connections and kind of entrenched ourselves out here. So who knows what will happen, but no, I don't have kind of everybody says, oh, I want to work for ESPN or want to work for, Fox or whatever. So, yeah, certainly are there some bigger national goals out there that might intrigue me at some point? Sure. But, like I said, we're the lights are still on. We've got air conditioning right now and we're, trucking along here in Boise and my kids are having a great time, playing summer baseball and just enjoying things out here. So, yeah, miss my family. In a perfect world, you'd be closer to home, but I don't have any kind of obvious, oh, I got to work for this paper next or this group next. I just want to, see what happens. But right now I'm happy where I'm at and we're really enjoying it out here in Boise.
Yeah, it sounds like you're focusing on the important things, and I think that's great.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a great opportunity to, especially in the summer, to get to spend time with your kids. And we were just had a great Father's Day, seeing both my kids out there playing baseball. And some jobs don't have that opportunity when you're, working all day and you miss stuff like that. But being able to work from home and have that kind of work-life balance this time of year is certainly fun, and that's a big part of, why I like doing what I do.
So looking back at people that you've worked with in the past, maybe bosses, editors, who has been one person, maybe a couple people who have influenced you the most?
Well, one person that when I've been asked this question before, and maybe even in this kind of interview for one of the previous ones, but I always say Joe Strauss, and he was the beat writer and then became the columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. So I never necessarily worked with him at like the same place, but he was a colleague, and I kind of saw what he did. And how he went about the clubhouse and how he would talk to players and how he would ask questions, how he would phrase, tough questions to be respectful. And he was, an older guy that kind of, I guess you could say, took me under his wing a little bit. Obviously coming in as a young reporter, a lot of the older reporters knew my dad and stuff from sports media, and they were always wanting to help me. And there was like my very first day ever in the Cardinals clubhouse when I was interning for MLB.com, like the day before opening day. I like was started to have a conversation with somebody and I sat down on like the couch in the locker room, which is like the biggest no-no of all time. You don't sit on like the player's couch in the locker room. Like, that's their couch. You don't do that. And he kind of leaned over and kind of said, get the bleep up from the chair and before anybody, any players saw or noticed or whatever. So that was like the very first thing he ever said to me. And ever since, he kind of just would give me some small tips and pointers and help me develop relationships with the players where I'd see him talking to, Yadi or Molina about golf. He wasn't interviewing him, wasn't whatever, but he would just think of something to say or a conversation to kind of get to know the players better. So then when you did need to go over and talk to him, they knew who you were and they're like, yeah, okay, this is a cool guy or a nice guy. I'll talk to him, or so how to develop relationships, sources, how to, like I said, how to phrase the tough questions that maybe you don't want to ask because they're a respectful, nicer way than just going, why are you sucking right now or something like that. I learned a lot from Joe, and he unfortunately passed away from cancer recently, and I guess it's been a couple years now, but that was always tough because he was always a guy that I could reach out to, and I have to say my dad. I mean, my dad being in this business, and I probably should have said him first, but certainly my dad. Following in his footsteps and seeing for 30 plus years how he's done this. And especially early on when I'd write a story, I'd send it to him. Could you edit this? What do you think of this? Am I taking the right angle here? I don't do that as much anymore, but I used to always send stuff, and I'll still ask questions to my dad about, how I'm thinking about this story or thinking about this idea, or what do you think? And so having a sounding board of someone who's, done what he's done and covering, sports and baseball for, 40 plus, 50 plus years almost, I think, that's probably been the greatest resource in person, is just to be able to, whenever I had any questions or needed anything, even when I'm at the high school paper or the college paper, and some of the things he would do, and also just seeing from a work-life balance, like I talked about, seeing him when I was growing up, and he'd have to travel a lot and miss a lot of stuff, and the early morning flights he would take to get back for my baseball game, or some of the sacrifices that he would make to do what's best for his kids. I'm trying to do that for my kids as well, and so yeah, I would say those are two. I mean, Joe from a just outside perspective, but from an internal perspective, Rob Raines, my dad, would be at top of the list for sure.
So, what advice would you give someone like myself, maybe someone's in college, someone going to college here in the fall that wants to get involved in the sports media industry?
Well, you got to love it. And like I said, I know I joke about this, but I mean, unfortunately, it's a real thing. You can't necessarily get into this business for the money. You can certainly make enough to, provide for your family. And if you get to the biggest of highs, the ESPN, all that, there's a lot in there. But you have to do this for just the love of your job and the love of sports, and just for your personal pride a lot of times, because it is late nights when you get into it. You're covering high school sports on weekends, and you're sitting in the office answering, sports calls on Friday night football scores, and working until midnight, 1 a.m. for the next day's paper. Or you're, as I said, traveling, and maybe that sounds great, but you're missing your kids, third grade choir concert or whatever else, or baseball game or whatever. So, and like I said, it's not, you know, there's money involved in it, but it's not, the same as being an engineer or some of these jobs that are doing much, out there. So it's not, you don't do this job to just to get rich. You do this job, sports media, because of your love of writing and telling stories and interviewing people and being able to share, stories and things about others, and so it's just, there are, some negatives to it. Like I said, it can be long hours and maybe not the greatest pay, but it's a very rewarding job that I think comes, like I said, with the chance to travel to some cool places. The biggest thing I miss now about Bronco Nation News is the fact that I used to love going out every morning to my driveway and getting the paper and seeing my name like in the paper with my story. Like there was still something really cool about that. Like even in this day and age, and doing it for 9, 10 years, going out and getting the paper the next morning and making sure they didn't screw up the headline and making sure that there's no problems. Like that thrill of kind of seeing your article in the paper when you go to the Walgreens or whatever, like there was still something really cool about that. So if you can take a lot of pride in this business, and it's a pretty cool deal to be able to, get out there publicly and write for a paper, or be on the radio, or be on TV, or whatever the platform or medium is that you're going with. And so I would just say, if you love it, if you love sports, if you love telling great stories about other people, and having that perspective on things, I say work your butt off and continue to ask questions. And it may not be great to start, but you can keep working your way up. And you may not like covering the high school lacrosse, to start with or something, but you can work your way up. And I would just say, work hard and have fun and be a sponge, and keep asking as many questions as you can. Keep developing as many relationships and connections as you can, because you never know when that guy gave you the business card, 6 months ago, and you thought it was nothing, that maybe now you're looking for a job, to reach back out. Or maybe somebody else on social media, regardless, just I would say a big thing is just expand your network as big as possible. Talk to as many people, meet as many people as you can. You never know where that'll lead to you. But I would just say, be prideful in what you do and work hard, and have fun, because like I said, it's a very rewarding profession, just maybe not in the same rewarding ways as some others.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time and talking to me. It seems like you really enjoy your job, and I think that's great. As someone who wants to be a sports writer, wants to work in sports media in the future, I'm doing a little bit of it on my own right now, but it's definitely really encouraging to see someone like you who's really succeeding, doing his own thing, writing about Boise State athletics, and you seem like you're really having a great time doing it. That's awesome to see. So
Well,
thanks for talking to me.
yeah, appreciate you for having me on, and honored and excited to get out there for the ceremony here in a couple of weeks. And like I said, cool side story, obviously, with my dad getting his first award. So it's going to be cool for both of us to be out there, and our whole family's coming out there, and
Awesome.
looking forward to it. And you did a heck of a job with the interview, man. If there's anything
Thank
ever I
you.
can ever do to help you out, man, please feel free to reach out. And just excited for the event, and honored to get the award yet again.
Great. Thank you very much. And congratulations. I didn't start with that. I should have started with that, but it's pretty cool. You're able to notch your fifth award. That's got to be really, really fulfilling, especially with how many years that you were working to start. It's got to be really cool to be able to get that. So that's awesome.
It,
I'm
it
happy.
is, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.